Welcome to Starfish Astrology. Today's video is about Cancer Sun, Aquarius Moon. Now those are two interesting signs to put together, don't you think? If you are a Cancer Sun, Aquarius Moon, or you know somebody who is, this could be a great tool for self or external analysis. I just woke up not too long ago, so we'll see how the expressing and communicating game goes here. Good luck to me. All right, so we've talked about Cancer Sun a few times in the series thus far. It seems like there's a lot of Cancers out there that are curious about how their Sun and their Moon sign interact. So we've talked about how the Sun and Moon are luminaries. They're not actually planets, and I like to be fairly accurate when I'm verbalizing things. So when you go to the newspaper horoscopes, which are mostly BS anyways, and you see, all the signs, that's your sun sign. Okay, and the sun represents your vitality, the ego, the will, how you feel empowered or disempowered, how you take or give power to others. And it has a lot to do with, when I say vitality, not just the physical amount of energy, but how your energy is best expressed, right? So a Cancer Sun, I use the phrase living through nurturing, because Cancer is often said to be the sign that a new soul, so to speak, would come into, because the sign of Cancer is said to always know how to come home and how to nurture itself. And it's a cardinal sign. And cardinal signs are the catalysts. They like to start things. And it makes sense for Cancer because Cancer would give birth to something, or, literally a person or a project or an idea. They can be very shrewd at business. Because they're really good at starting things and nurturing things from the little seedling, Cancer males and females are both usually pretty fond of having their own children, starting their own family. So anyways, the Cancer Sun's vitality often lies in their emotional state. And I would say that this is true to everyone for a certain extent, but particularly in a water sign like Cancer. So I always talk about the expression of the signs in each luminary and planet as being more evolved or less evolved. And so when the Cancer Sun evolves enough that they feel free to express their emotions, then they're going to be a lot healthier in general. They're going to be in a better mood. They're going to have more physical stamina and vitality. Often in our society, the external implications are, well, if you show emotions, particularly if you're a male, that you are weak, that you become open to ridicule. So ideally, the Cancer Sun has this evolution where they realize that their emotional state and their vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. And if other people have a problem with the way they express their emotions, that's their problem, and that says a lot more about them. So a robust constitution can be more readily achieved if the Cancer personality is able to feel free to ride the waves of their emotions and not have to suppress anything, right? And part of that is learning how to be impervious to the emotional state of those around you. That can be fairly challenging for most water signs, Cancer included. The ego of Cancer responds to how useful they feel around people they care about, how needed, and how their ability to nurture or their other talents can be used to help other people grow. Their ability to take care of something, it doesn't have to be a person. It can be a project at work, or a personal project at home, or a painting that they're starting and nurturing to a finished product. A group of people like a band or a theater group. the more that they're able to be needed in these situations, the more confident they will feel. They must express this drive in order to feel confident in their will and their true purpose. A Cancer that doesn't have anything going on, somebody or something to take care of, it can feel a little bit lost. You know, there are signs out there like Aries that really, that in their purest expression of Aries, doesn't really want to be bothered with taking care or being in charge of somebody else in that way. They don't want to be responsible for their growth or for their for anything really. They might want to be in charge, but not in that way. But with a Cancer sun, I mean, I've known many Cancer suns, male and female, since I've been studying astrology. You know, that's a long time. It's over 20 years. And I can tell you right now that every single one of them, to some degree, always had something they were nurturing and building. And, you know, some of them take the very literal version of nurturing and take care of people, home health aides or people that work at nursing homes. And others are, they become, let's say, music producers or people who make music and produce music and help bring other people into the forefront. They see talent and they want to round it up and nurture it from soup to nuts. So Cancers will feel strong when they feel protective towards an idea or a person or a cause. And generally they feel weak confidence-wise if they're ever told that their highly sensitive nature makes them bad or wrong or weird. If they grew up being ridiculed for their feelings and for their fiercely protective nature towards family or anyone they perceive as family, that's going to take quite a toll on the psyche. And I say in particular for the male because if you grow up in a society that I grew up in, which basically tells you, well, guys aren't supposed to cry, and they can only be angry if they're showing it by like beating somebody up, or maybe anger is okay, but not if you do this, and that. And the society as a whole has the pervasive theme of guilt and shame over the body and having sexual desires and having strong feelings. And so in particular, these water signs, the male signs, I think, have a little bit more working against them. Unless they grew up in a family where that sort of thing was encouraged, because your family unit is really important. And all Cancers will have a strong tie to mom or to the mother figure or to maybe all the females that nurtured them in general. It's also possible that the mother figure was the father. When we talk about the mother or the father figure in astrology, we talk about the person that embodied and carried out the tasks that are most commonly associated with feminine and or masculine, right? So when I grew up, I'm not a Cancer, I don't have Cancer moon or anything, but for instance, when I grew up, my father sort of doubled as my mother too, as my mother was away, far away, which is actually indicative of a moon in Sagittarius. But that video is earlier. You can find it. So the strong time to mom can be really good, especially if they have a good relationship with mom. They don't have to have an excellent relationship where they get along all the time. If mom was manipulative or, uses their son or daughter's devotion to gain stuff, then that's going to be a really interesting dynamic. And then as this person develops relationships with women later on, that relationship with mom is going to be triple-fold important as to how they view women in general. So if you know a Cancer, sun or moon, or you are one, look to the relationship with mom or who the person perceived as their mother to see how they're going to respond to women. And it works differently in the sun and moon. And the Cancer sun will feel disempowered when their early views of mother or women or their own feeling state were skewed in some way to make them believe that they were too weak, like they're called a mama's boy, or you're not manly enough. Or for girls, sometimes, as a woman, I remember growing up thinking, well, if I embody the qualities that are more masculine, I'll get further ahead, because masculine qualities seem to be prized for success and getting ahead. And so if a Cancer female grows up seeing that feminine qualities are in any way, put down or lessened in importance, sometimes they'll take that to heart, and the Cancer, especially if they grew up with a more masculinely expressed mother, and they tend to take that too far. And part of this is because the Cancer state is so easily allowing external forces in, and they can really tell. They always have their emotional feelers on how other people feel in the room, and it's not being empathic. Empathic is different. The Cancer is just highly sensitive. That's not saying that they couldn't be empathic too, but if you're so sensitive that you can't discern between where your feelings start and others end, and vice versa, then you need to create some boundaries, and you can't possibly be empathic because everything you feel is going to be based off of projections of your insecurities and things like that. So a Cancer Sun will give power to others by sort of allowing them to go out on their own. When the Cancer Sun feels disempowered in some way, they'll sort of enable people and make them in a way so they can continue to feel needed. If that's where they're feeding their ego, by being needed by others constantly, then they may find a way to manipulate others to be dependent on them. Cancers can be very manipulative, but it's usually never for unless there's other things going on the chart that say this, but it's usually never for malicious purposes. But if they haven't evolved their sense of self to understand that as a caretaker, they're always taking care of something, and that's themselves. If they're always looking to taking care of others to feed their confidence, then they may unconsciously convince other people that they are needed in order for that person to thrive. So when they give power, and you can only give power to people if you feel powerful yourself, empowered instead of disempowered, then they could say, you know what, I've done what I can. You need to learn your own lessons now. So go out, learn your things, learn how to survive. This could be with anything. They could start a business and then sell it to somebody who might be able to take it further. Or they might, take a child and be like, okay, I can only hold your hand for so much. Because the true expression of nurturing, as I understand it, is the ability to find the balance between literal physical taking care, and then the ability to allow that person's self-care skills to grow. Because that's the ultimate nurturing, is teaching somebody and encouraging somebody how to take care of themselves so they don't have to depend on anyone else. So if the Cancer Sun feels disempowered, unconfident, they've got some issues they got to work out, like we all do, they'll create that codependency. And they're pretty good at pushing buttons too without knowing it, and to get a rise out of people. It's just something that they have to work on. So we're going to move to the moon. The moon represents your emotions, your intuitions, what makes you feel at home, how you express and interpret emotions, and in the lesser evolved, less mature sense, how you viscerally react to feeling emotionally threatened, or having your emotional security, relationship security, home security taken away. And then in a more evolved, mature sense, how you respond to those threats. To me, a response is something that you take time to cultivate, and that doesn't create any further drama or upset. And a reaction is much more based on past events. That's my dog drinking. She always has to drink when I'm making a video. And then how you create, you almost create a snowball effect, because you're always reacting to the past. We'll get a little bit more into that. So moon in Aquarius. Now Aquarius, some of you will be like, oh, Aquarius is supposed to be cold and emotionless, and that's not the case. I would not really say that there's that one sign or one placement has more emotions than the other, but the expression can definitely feel more robotic. Moon in Aquarius can express their emotional state a little bit more calculated. It is an air sign, so think of all the air signs. If you have moon in Gemini, moon in Libra, moon in Aquarius, there is that ability to take the emotions, which is usually associated with water, into the air state. Now my dog's going to eat an hour after I put the food down. So, and to take it into the air state and to intellectualize. And so, as with any moon in an air sign, sometimes the default, especially if it's a learned behavior, is to intellectualize the emotions and sort of Spock everything, and then never actually allow themselves to feel it. So, so that those visceral emotions that may have popped up early in life, because the moon, the qualities of the moon develop earlier than the qualities of the sun usually, because the moon is associated with mother and with family. And as soon as you're conceived and, you get past being a clump of cells, you are, basically you're developing the moon in certain ways, right? So their intuition, Moon in Aquarius intuition, is based off of the years they've spent observing other humans with which they share space on this planet. They love to observe. They can recognize patterns. Aquarius is about patterns. Aquarius is ruled by the planet Uranus. It's recognizing patterns and putting things into place. And so Moon in Aquarius growing up may have learned that emotions, when they did show their emotions, because there is a rebellious streak to Moon in Aquarius, and they may not like the rules. If they grew up in a rule-heavy house, chances are there wasn't a love for it, and there was some rebellious expression. It could have been overt or covert. It really depends on other things. But in this case, they may have learned that their emotional expression got them in trouble, or they were denigrated for throwing a tantrum, which most people are, or for showing too much of this or too much of that. And Moon in Aquarius learns very quickly, if the emotions are not encouraged and you're told to stifle them, you will learn to stifle them, and it will come very naturally to the Moon in Aquarius. Whereas if Moon in Aquarius grows up in a place where emotions are encouraged, okay, well, you go ahead, tell me how you feel. How do you feel? Okay, get it all out, and then let's talk about it. And there'll be a healthier expression, much less suppression of emotions. But they are the observer of humans. Remember, they're the water bearers, so they know how to hold the water. It's not that they don't have the emotions, they have them. But they're just a little bit better at allowing them to leak out one little drop at a time. So they feel at home when they can buck the current in some way, right? Moon in Aquarius tends to be stubborn, even if they have other things in their chart that says, they're pretty go with the flow. There's this inherent understanding that they need to be liberated. This is security through liberating. They feel secure when they're free. I think that makes sense. Maybe. And so there was a strong will. They may be contrary. If the home they grow up in is very straight-laced and by the books, they're probably going to burn the books. If they grew up in a quirky family, which chances are somebody in there was quirky. If there's Moon in Aquarius, the mom might be quirky, but she might be the only one, or you might have learned, I need to conform because mom's conforming, but as you got to know your mom, it's very possible that you learned how different she actually was. Very often in Moon in Aquarius, there's a lack of affection coming from somewhere. Not always, but a lot of the people that I've done charts for will say, yeah, dad was not, he was totally hands-off. It's usually dad, I've noticed, but it could go the other way because the moon is mom, but Aquarius is a masculine sign. So that's where I tend to look for dad. Sometimes, too, Moon in Aquarius may have picked up some things from mom, regarding dad in terms of, how they worry, Moon and Aquarius express emotions best through words and unconventional means. Aquarius is unconventional. There is that, when everybody else is zigging, they're zagging most of the time. They may appear mechanical in distance, especially if they have some evolving to do regarding their own feelings. And they interpret emotions with a sort of analysis. They're not always quick to react, but sometimes quick to make judgment on someone's intentions. They are a fixed sign, and like I said, they notice patterns. The pitfall here is to always treat new situations based on old patterns. Patterns are very, very useful, and they're good for recognizing red flags, but there also has to be room to be able to sit back and say, okay, let's see how this plays out. If it starts to get too messy, or if it doesn't serve me, if it's too dramatic, or if it starts to become hurtful, or if, the relationship or friendship starts to feel parasitic in some way, then I can step back, no harm, no foul. And that would be the ideal way to use the evolution of the moon in Aquarius, right? Their ability to step back and create space between emotion and reaction is especially heightened, so it should be used, but not to the point where every time somebody emits some sort of messy human emotion that you just push them away or you dismiss them, because there is something about moon in Aquarius, and I've also found with Aquarius Rising too. David Bowie had an Aquarius Rising, where there's this desire or even this feeling that you're somewhat above humanity. I'm above those human messy emotions. Look at you guys. You get yourselves into all these wars, and you're, there's nothing really black and white about moon in Aquarius, but at the same time, because they're a fixed sign, they can get very, very strong ideas on how feelings should be. And the problem is that feelings are not, there's nothing concrete about them. So if moon in Aquarius starts getting rigid about their own expression of feelings and others, then maybe there needs to be something going on. They need to get a little bit of help, or, just start, they can really come off as very cool and calculating, even though there's a lot going on. So if we put these two together, because we talk about how Cancer has a high emotional state, and depending on where the sun and moon are in the chart and what the rising sign is, there's different things, right? So if the sun is more emphasized, it's very likely that what you will see is the sensitive side of this person, and you will be a little taken aback when you realize how easy it is for them to step back from their emotions and make decisions and react to things from a distance. It may not be something that you expect. Similarly, if the moon is, let's say, in the first house, or if it's being strengthened by other interactions in the chart, if the moon is what comes out more, then it would be the other way around. You might be surprised to see how emotional and feeling this person really is, because their initial reaction is to express their moon sign first. It's a possibility. And these two signs, Cancer and Aquarius, are considered in conjunct, and they have a sort of strange and alien relationship with one another. There's not much similar between the two, but I'll go over some similarities later. So on one hand, you have Cancer representing the matriarchy. It's a water sign. It's cardinal. It starts things. It's got blurred boundaries. There's a lot of emotion. And then there's some attachment to mother, for better or for worse. Their views of women are very closely tied to their mom. Most of the time, a Cancer male is going to have this overall view of women on a little bit of a pedestal, and maybe even be a little bit afraid to approach them, because they're sensitive to the idea that sometimes the masculine approach to women can be a little off-putting. And I've known a lot of Cancer males and Cancer moon males, and they've always been, right from the beginning when I met them, there was a very non-threatening vibe about them. They may not have always been the most sensitive people in terms of expression. Either they were putting on a show or a mask, or they didn't feel they could be, but getting to know them, there is a high degree of sensitivity, and overall they feel a lot more than they'll let on most of the time, right? So then you have Aquarius, the water bear, and kind of coming in here with this idea of restrained emotional state, and the two kind of don't mesh. So what do you do? So if the two luminaries are within 9 degrees of each other or less, the friction between the two luminaries and the signs become more prominent. And friction is not a bad thing. You don't get transformation or change, or really anything all that interesting, if you don't have a little friction. Which is why if I do synastry charts, like relationship charts between people that are, together in a relationship or married, there's always a lot of opposites going on and a few key places of friction. It's important to have that. You can't make a fire without a spark, right? So because of the rebellious streak of the moon in Aquarius, they tend in the early years to look down on more mainstream things and thoughts, and they get kind of, they get a little snobby sometimes. Well, everybody's doing that. They might dress a little bit differently. They might be the black sheep of their family. And again, if the sun, if Cancer is more, expressed, or let's say they have Pisces rising, which makes them a little bit more malleable, it may not be something you know about. Sometimes you don't realize how weird and wacky Aquarius moon is until you get to know them. And then they love to shock people. Once they get comfortable with people emotionally, their sense of humor can be a little bit shocking and a little bit out there and weird. And hey, for me, I like that. But I also have Venus in Aquarius, so I have an affinity for the Aquarian energy. And, some people wouldn't like that at all. So, hey. Depending on the moon placement, they might rebel through different ways of dressing, through the music or the art that they like. They may choose to express their emotions more through a performance art, since it's a slightly more acceptable way of expressing emotions, singing and acting or anything in between. So let's talk about the differences between the two signs, and we'll pull it together with the similarities. So Cancer's pull towards tradition, and especially family. Aquarius really has no love for tradition, not for the sake of tradition anyways. Aquarius feels compelled to hold emotions in, or at least to hold back until it's safe to show what they're feeling. And Cancer kind of needs to express them, like in some ways right away, in order to feel healthy emotionally and physically. So you can always find a happy medium there, so both luminaries can be appeased. Cancer prefers one-on-one interactions, doesn't love being in groups of people. It's just too much for them. There's too much stimulation. Getting to know people slowly. Aquarius connects best to crowds, but in an impersonal way. And they prefer to start, some of them might even prefer to start relationships or to grow emotional bonds through the internet or through personal ads or a friend of a friend. Or they might prefer to devote their emotional fervor towards causes or towards groups rather than individuals, depending on what they went through and what they're able to work through. Aquarius is spurred on by intellectual challenges and makes friends first, before a friendship goes further in any way, whether that means becoming business partners or best friends or lovers. There's the sharing of information and knowledge and mutual interest is important to the Aquarian moon especially. And after that, the emotional connection blossoms. But then the Cancer side, so if the sun in Cancer is what is connecting to another person, this unconscious, emotional, intuitive pull towards somebody, then the gut instincts will take over, and they'll grow an attachment to the person and get to know the person later. Cancer tends to become emotionally involved with anything that tugs at their heart. Those ASPCA videos, no bueno. And they don't really have a lot of clear boundaries, or at least they don't start off life with a lot of clear boundaries. But Aquarius would prefer a boundary before making themselves vulnerable, and sometimes seek that having an emotional advantage over another before expressing their feelings. Well, I want to know that they like me before I tell them, that sort of thing. Venus in Aquarius operates similarly, I can tell you from experience. Cancer suns tends to have strong ties to home, where they grew up, how they grew up. They might be world travelers, but always have a home to come back to, and it might be their actual home or hometown or area. Aquarius is more curious about how other people live. How did they grow up? What's their culture like? What's that religion all about? Why do they believe in that? And Moon in Aquarius generally doesn't have any love for a particular belief system. They like to make their own way in life, and their own sense of what may or may not be greater than us very rarely will take a traditional turn. So I would be hard-pressed to find a Moon in Aquarius that's religious. The only thing that might pull them towards religion is if the Cancer sun is super pronounced and super strengthened in the chart, and then maybe their tie to tradition keeps them feeling safe in whatever religion they grew up in. They might have a passing interest in. It's possible. Aquarius moons likes to create their own traditions, and they might set their parenting and marriage experience apart from how they grew up, especially if they found it stifling. An Aquarius moon is remarkably good at not taking things personally, but if the emotional state, if somebody is trying to, if somebody is poking at their ego, because that's Cancer moon, somebody makes a statement, Cancer might overly interpret it as, oh, are you saying you're better than me or you're smarter than me? That oversensitive nature can take over. So, it's important to just sort of not take things personally, Cancer Sun. Just try. So the similarities are that Cancer has a great memory for the past. Sometimes it works well because it's both for joyful memories and for betrayal or sorrowful memories, and Aquarius sees patterns and defaults to them if it's trying to protect itself. So this can be a poor combination for moving forward in life and trying not to perpetuate the same reactions to things, which always perpetuates the same relationships and the same situations. So seeing patterns is great, but trying to be less logical about patterns, and Cancer Sun not always defaulting to the same feelings. When new people come up in their lives, trying to treat them like it's a totally new situation. That would be really important for Cancer Sun and Moon. Cancer needs time to retreat. They need time alone. Aquarius might also want to be alone, but sometimes it's just because they don't work well with other people. It's hard to find like-minded and emotional people. And they tend to connect with crowds. So might really, like I said, the stage performance thing might very well be their thing, or they might be really good public speakers, and using the Cancer Sun, speaking towards a cause they feel really close to. Might be really great benefactors. So Moon in Aquarius, like I said, doesn't have less emotional capability than a moon sign. It just doesn't want things to get messy a lot of the time. And sometimes Cancer Sun learns to hold in emotions as a protective mechanism. That's their little crab shell. So again, we just want to be careful about not holding things in too much. Find a means of expression that's healthy for you and everyone around you. Both signs, of course, care deeply for others. Cancer is more personal, and Aquarius tends to hang on to causes and, like we talk about, like, groups of people. This demographic needs help. These people in another country needs help. And the Cancer sign can be really good at helping them to get a cause off the ground. And the Aquarius moon can sort of carry that passion forward and take it to the world. Both signs are known for slightly erratic emotional states. Cancer has a reputation of being moody and are easily swayed by outside influences if they allow it. Somebody's mood or the news or anything can easily change their state if they haven't created good boundaries. And Aquarius and the moon sign just might come across as more even-keeled, but everything that Aquarius touches has a bit of a mad scientist in it. So instead of being moody in the sense that it's affected by things going on around it, I would just say Moon in Aquarius can be unpredictable. That's not necessarily bad. And they won't always show that unpredictability right away, mostly, until you get to know them. And then it can be fun and adventurous, or downright exasperating, depending on the evolution of the person and also the person perceiving it, Both signs tend to hold back a lot of their true selves until they feel really comfortable with someone else. So you've got a crab shell and you've got the vase holding the water. And so unless there's like a strong pull of Leo, like in Venus and or Mars, or there's the first house placement of this moon, or maybe other water influences at work, Aquarius in Sun or Moon or Venus, as a rule, tends to give themselves away one piece at a time. It's unlikely that they're going to lay all their cards out on the table, again, unless we have some other stronger planets or things making aspects, pulling out the emotional cards more. And it's totally a potential if somebody is really appealing to the moon in Aquarius's, if someone's appealing to the Cancer side, where this subject feels really safe with this person and intuitively their gut just pulls them towards that person, then they could surprise themselves with how much they're able to just sort of blurt out how they feel and become emotionally connected. And a lot of that, like I said, depends on the person with the sun and the moon in the sign. How evolved are they? How close are they to their feeling state? Are they able to tap into their intuition, or are they always in protective mode? So that's really the big thing with this combo. Protective mode, useful sometimes, usually overused. most of the time. We have to be vulnerable to get strong and showing feelings and showing how you feel, particularly if you're able to use the Aquarius to step back and give yourself a better perspective. And then when you do express your feelings, it's not from a really personal state of taking something the wrong way or from trying to hurt somebody else because you're perceived hurt. It's more from a place of, well, this is who I am. This is how I feel. I know that your feeling state has very little to do with me, but I just want you to know that these are all the things I feel. And then the ability to walk away without caring how the other person responds. Always a good skill to have, no matter what your astrological chart says, right? All right, so that's it. That's all I've got on that today. You might notice that some videos take longer, and a lot of it has to do with if the two signs are conflicting, there's a lot more to say because there's so many nuances to put in. But I've had a request for Sun in Taurus and Moon in Aquarius next. Those two signs are squares. Lots of interesting, fun friction there. So that'll be the next video. Feel free to subscribe. It's great to have subscribers. I also do readings. Feel free to email me, the email address below. You can do short or long reports. We can do past, present, future. My view of using astrology for the future is not about telling you about events or warning you about things. It's more just, well, this is what could happen. This is the potentials. These are the things to look forward to, and to use it for a sense of empowerment, not a sense of there's no bad news in life, and free will is 99% of it. It really is. So that's the report. Hope you enjoyed. See you later.